Welcome to Apaga University. I'm Inga.
And I'm Julie. We are two
momtrepreneurs
who have built an in-home care business from the ground up, guided every step of the way by God's care and fueled by agape love.
16 years later and over 100 podcast episodes already under our belts, we invite you to continue on this journey with us as we share stories that resonate, insights that inspire, and practical guidance that empowers you to face any obstacle along this path.
Whether you're a professional caregiver, a family member, or are simply curious about what your steps will be when you need them, you have come to the right place.
Oh, hey, and while you're here, make sure you hit that subscribe button.
And after that, make sure you send this to a friend.
Yes, do it. All right, we'll quit fooling around and get to it.
Let's go. Class is in session.
Hello, Sunshines, and hello, Julie. How are you this morning?
Discombobulated.
I am discombobulated myself, and I live here.
Shall you tell everybody why we are here and not there?
Yes, and actually, it's my good news story, so we're going to be all sorts of discombobulated. Yeah, so basically, local people probably know this, and maybe, I don't know, people that know us from far away. There was a terrible, terrible fire at a hotel that just borders, their property borders our property at the office. Very, very bad. Just devastating.
Across the alley.
Across the alley. I mean, it was probably, 40 feet away from our...
Yeah.
The good news is that God was with us and that the wind was blowing the right direction.
Right.
And that nobody that I am aware of got hurt in the fire itself. Mm-hmm. And our property was able to be spared. The city was very, very good. There was a lot of water. And it still smells really bad in the office. And so I'm a princess and it just kills me. It's like in my lungs. So I'm not able to be there.
Yeah.
So we just adapted and everybody came here.
Yes.
Yeah. So good news. Good news.
Here we
Apaga
are.
Home Care is still standing. No one was hurt in the fire. You guys have to see the video of it. It is very, very impressive. We look like just this little tiny speck in the video, our office, compared to the hotel, but crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. God is good. We are very, very blessed.
We were lucky ducks.
Yep. Anyway, so change of scenery for the podcast today if you are watching.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll read the verse and then you can do your good news story.
Sounds
How about that?
Grand.
Okay, so this is Romans chapter 13, verse 8. It says, love fulfills God's requirements. Owe nothing to anyone except for your obligation to love one another. If you love your neighbor, you will fulfill the requirements of God's law. Boom.
Mic drop.
Yeah. Is there anything else to say?
Oh, it's a good one. It's a good one. Yes. And it's all about today's topic. Mm-hmm. So that is why I picked it.
Well, good. It's a good thing you're in charge of picking.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Picking and a grinning.
Something. All right. What'd you bring for a good news story?
So a while ago, we actually did a podcast on scams. Mm-hmm. And as I was going through my good news story search, there was this one about a hero bank teller saves a customer from losing millions on a scam by asking a few simple questions. So this woman in Australia recently yanked an unsuspecting woman back from the brink of a financial oblivion she was about to throw herself in, resulting from an internet transaction where basically it was one of those where she was very, very concerned about a family member. And so she was trying to save them. But this bank has been trained that if there's kind of a different kind of transaction, not a, kind of ask some questions. Yep. So the Liverpool branch noticed that the woman in her 70s seemed nervous coming in with the news that she was going to sell her home and she wished to cancel the home insurance she had through them. Asking why she was planning to sell, the teller got a very unsatisfactory answer that the woman needed to help her son. And so then they literally took the woman into a personal office and sat her down and found out the real reason the woman was going to make one of the largest financial decisions of her life is she needed to free her boyfriend from an overseas prison. So, and then she said, well, tell me about him. When's the last time you got together for coffee? And she said, no, actually we never met. We met online.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it didn't take long for the teller, whose very father was scammed out of millions as it happens, and who decided to run a reverse image search on Google of the man the woman claimed was her internet boyfriend, discovered that many of the photos the client received from the man were online, but with different names. So that's the only way she actually would accept that it was a scam. So anyway, she was going to send millions.
Yes, and that's the love scam.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So anyway, because of their training, they saved this woman.
That's awesome. You know, a couple weeks ago or month or so ago, Paga had to do a wire transfer, and it was just a smaller amount. It was about $10,000, so like not millions. I guess it's big, but it's not. Anyway, and same situation in the bank. Basically, they asked me a lot of very, very specific questions and. How long have you known these people that you're sending it to?
Oh, interesting.
Can you verify? You know, basically they were essentially saying once you make a wire transfer, you cannot get that money back. So you need to make darn sure you know who you're sending it to and why you're sending it. And then after I answered the questions, I do believe that the gal that was helping me had to go and talk to a supervisor as well.
Oh, wow.
Just to make sure. So that's great that these financial institutions have policies and procedures in place to try to slow it down a little bit so that people don't end up sending money that
I just can't imagine the responsibility that they feel whenever they see things. They've gotten way better about calling you if you have an interaction or a transaction.
Yes.
Transaction. That is weird. And
yes.
they'll stop you now.
Yes. So you know, the one that gets me is the credit card. So when we travel, which we do a lot, I never think to call and say like, hey, we're traveling. So if you get a bunch of weirdo whatever
addresses,
but the one where it like almost undoubtedly every time will lock up and deny it is if I'm in a hotel and I try to get a soda out of the soda machine.
Yep. It did it that one time we were at that conference.
Yes. It's like, is this a valid transaction? I'm like, what? We just spent $5,000 on fuel and you didn't ask me, but you're going to ask me about the $1.50 Coke? No, I'm just kidding. It will trigger a lot. So interesting.
Yeah.
Good grief. Everybody's out there just trying to steal your money all the time.
You know, if they would just be honest, it'd be amazing what this world would do.
Very much so.
Yes.
Well, anyway, good for that teller. Yep. Happy to hear it and happy to know that Ipaga Home Care is still standing and we have a different table that we can meet at to have a podcast.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yes, indeed. Well, let's talk about the topic today. Debt.
Yes. So debt. So basically what we're going to start out with is like, if you marry somebody, what of their debt do you incur? And then if somebody passes as their spouse or family member, once again, what debt of theirs do you incur? And I'm going to read a few scenarios because no wonder it's such a gray area. Yeah. It's not black and white. So I'm just there. This one article that we'll be passing through, there was actually some people that asked questions. The hard thing about it is every single answer was, you need to check with your state.
Yes.
Check with your state on their rules. So there is not one good answer. Universal. It's got to be talk to your state because in some states it's totally different. For example, this gal said, in the case of my son's death, who is responsible for funeral expenses? He was 25, living with his fiance and their son as a married couple. They filed taxes as married, although they weren't legally married. She got the tax return the day he died. There wasn't any will or estate assets. Who is legally and morally responsible for expenses? Once again, it says reach out to your state's bar association.
Oh my gosh.
But that one's got a lot of twists and turns in it. Another one that I thought was really interesting was my father passed away in October of 2017, and now my mother has been contacted by a collection agency regarding a lease my father co-signed for my sister. My mother was unaware. It was done in 2011. Is my mother responsible for this debt? They lived in Florida when he signed the lease, but lived in Tennessee when he died. So anyway, once again, property law is state specific. So then another suggestion or a scenario, my dad just passed away. He was paying on a new truck. Can my mom keep the truck and just keep paying the monthly notes? And in this one, they did say usually that's not an issue as long as the payments do not stop, though she'll probably want to change the truck into her name.
Sure.
So that was a little bit more black and white.
Right. Well, that's because somebody was willing and wanting to continue paying for it.
Exactly right. Then another gentleman said, my wife passed away in June of 2017. Today, I got an ambulance bill for $698. Do I have to pay that?
What's the word, hummingbird?
Depends on the state you're in.
Oh my gosh.
But these are just, I mean, there are hundreds. One more. My husband had a friend who had become homeless and sleeping in his car. He was with us for a little over 2 months, going in and out of the hospital from complications with cirrhosis of the liver. He is now on hospice care. When he passes, will we be responsible for his medical debt? He used our address when he went into the hospital.
I wouldn't think so.
So basically, if you have not signed for anything and you're not legally responsible for him, most likely not. But again, reach out to your local bar association for legal advice.
Oh my gosh.
But there's pages and pages of people that have complicated situations. So I was like, let's see what we can find out and share today.
Well, in this next article, there is a little bit of a snippet on the difference between a community property state and then a common law state.
Okay.
Because I think that makes a big difference in how things are handled. But
sure.
Basically, I think the thing that people think about is, okay, when we get married, does your debt become my debt?
Right.
So who is responsible for debt pre-marriage? Well, when one or both partners have debt coming into the marriage, the debt belongs solely to the person who incurred it. For example, let's say that you have, or one of the individuals has $15,000 in private student loans in their name, and the spouse has $10,000 in credit card debt in their name. Neither one would be responsible for the other person's debt in that scenario, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the exception would be if either one acted as a co-signer. So then you are attaching yourself to it, or if if it's a joint type credit card.
Okay.
But it's interesting because I'm still wondering about, does that change when you get into those common law and or community property states? So
sure.
Yeah, I guess the answer is we really don't know, but we're going to talk a lot about it.
Right.
Basically, co-signers, those are situations where, both people sign on the dotted line, essentially. And co-signers are treated as being equally responsible for repaying debt, and that is regardless of whether both parties benefited from the money borrowed.
Mm-hmm.
So if your partner co-signed on a car loan or a student loan because of your credit score, and maybe it wasn't good enough to get it, they still share the legal responsibility for the debt, even if they don't drive the car or go to the school.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something to definitely consider as you're thinking about
trying to help somebody
or trying to help somebody.
Yeah.
You may not benefit from it at all, but you are still responsible. So then the question is, how is the debt handled after marriage? Well, basically, this is, I believe, where you get into that, depending on the state that you live. So community property states, those ones basically say that most of the debts incurred after marriage may be treated as the responsibility of both spouses. And that's, I think, whether or not it's one person or both that sign on it. So in a community property state, and those states, according to this article, are Arizona, California, Idaho, Louisiana, Nevada, New Mexico, Texas, Washington, and Wisconsin. Common law states, the debt that is taken on after marriage is usually treated as being separate and belonging only to the spouse who incurred the debt. The exception are those debts that are in the spouse's name only, but benefit both partners. For instance, that might include credit card debt if the card was used to pay for basic needs like food, clothing, and shelter, which I don't know how you sort that out, but
oh boy.
Yeah.
That's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk to us about the implications of sharing debt in marriage.
So there are two reasons it's important to understand whether you're responsible for the partner's debt after you're married. First, there's a potential consequences if the debt goes unpaid.
Mm-hmm.
So if you co-signed a debt or opened a joint account, late or negative payments could affect both your credit reports and scores. And you could both be sued by for an outstanding debt, regardless of whether you live in a community property or common law state.
So that's if you both signed on it.
Right. If a debt is held by just one spouse in a community property state, creditors could seek to attach jointly held assets to recover what's owed. This creditor recovery may include bank accounts and any real property owned, such as home, land, or vehicle. So even though you may not have been directly responsible for the debt, you could still be on the hook for repaying if your spouse defaults. That's a worry. If you and your partner divorce in a community property state, the debts you individually brought into the marriage would remain your own. But debts introduced after the marriage could be divided equally between you, depending on the divorce laws of your state. So, yeah.
So basically, I think the short and long of it is a really good idea to talk about this financial stuff with your partner before you get married, making sure that you understand how much debt you have as a couple and who's responsible for what. It's also kind of an opportunity to really discuss what's the repayment strategy. And I don't think I'm just making it up. I think I've heard it, but financial situations, I think, are a very high up on the list of reasons why people fight.
I think it's number one.
And divorce.
Yes.
And so really it is a worthwhile thing to discuss before you would go into getting married so that everybody knows, what we're bringing to the table. So something that I think is a frequently asked question would be, are you responsible for paying your spouse's tax debts, right?
Right.
So whether you're responsible is going to depend on how you filed. If you file jointly, you are both generally responsible for any liabilities related to the tax filing. If you file separately, or if the debt was from when you and your spouse were single filers, you typically would not be responsible for your spouse's tax debt. If your spouse or former spouse failed to report income and claimed improper deductions, you can request innocent spouse relief.
Oh, interesting.
So,
who knew? Yeah. Does getting married affect your credit score? It does not. Credit scores are individual. Your credit score is only impacted if you open a joint credit account. For example, you might apply for a car or home loan together. That application and the resulting payment history will affect both of the scores.
Sure. So basically, simply by getting married, it's not going to affect your credit score, but as you consolidate and basically incur debt together, then it will.
Righto. Righto. Yeah. So then life happens. And so do I have to pay off my spouse's debts when they die? And so here's kind of what you're responsible for and what you aren't after a loved one's death.
The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau states that spouses, children, and other relatives are usually not on the hook for outstanding debts of a late loved one. The decedent's debt typically gets paid via their estate. That is, of course, if there is any money or property to, I guess, recover from.
Right.
If you die with debt, your estate may first be purged to pay it off. This could affect the beneficiaries of your estate as they may lose out on some of the money or assets because of the debts that have to be paid off. Some states, however, require survivors to be paid first. So again, it's going to come down to what are the state laws. And then if there is no value left in the estate, the debt goes unpaid and no one has to assume the responsibility unless certain criteria are met. This is a really, this is a tough situation. And like for us as an agency providing care, if someone passes away, I honestly don't know what the laws in Montana say about it, because thank the good Lord above, we have always had very, very good clients, and they have honored whatever debt has been incurred. But I will tell you, the final invoice that I have to send out after someone passes away, I just about cry every single time I do it, because they're already in the worst time of their life, right? And then here you have to go and send a bill. And oftentimes it's not a small bill.
No.
But anyway, yeah.
Well, and then my understanding too is one of the first things you have to do is put it in the paper, attention creditors. For anybody that knew this person, you have 60 or 90 days in which to submit to this person. And it goes in the classifieds. There's a whole section on it.
I did not even know that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, for example, when my stepdaughter passed years ago, I got a call on her student loan. And I was that person. I was like, well, she's not going to pay it. And they were like, oh, why? And I said, well, she passed. So they gave me an address and I had to send in her death certificate.
Okay.
And then we never heard from them again. They were very, very kind, but I was just like, oh Lord, for whatever reason they had our number on record, and but they were very good to us.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. I think, it's crazy some of the calls that we get asking, like, maybe if somebody still works for us, or trying to put together the pieces of how to track somebody down to try to recover money.
Oh my gosh. Who the heck was I just talking to? Where they literally were able to get on social media and Google this person that was across the US to figure out, and then they ended up on Facebook on a friends that then found out that, well, actually they'd gotten their butt in trouble and they were sitting in Folsom City Blues jail or whatever, you know. But it took about 48 hours, and she was able to pinpoint, and it was like freaking Nancy Drew, man.
Well, remember a week or so ago when I got the call from the state investigator person? I was like, wait a minute. We just did a podcast on scams. How do I know that you are who you say you are? He just laughed. And anyway, but basically it was looking for somebody whose family member had said they work in home care. And I was able to just like put the pieces together and actually on Facebook it was under a completely different name, right? Mm-hmm. But I was able to put it all together and figure out, okay, well, I think if it's who we think we're talking about, they work actually at a facility, not for a home care provider. Called back and left a message. And it turns out he was legitimate because he at one point had been the school resource officer at Glacier High School. So once I knew, he told me his first name, but then I put his phone number into the internet and it came up with his full name. And I was like, oh, yeah, he's legit. I know who this guy is.
Oh, that's hilarious.
That's the benefit of a small town.
And there are jobs literally where people, that's what they do. Mm-hmm. They will pinpoint people down.
Oh, yeah.
They find them.
Yes.
Can't hide.
I guess not.
So when you do need to pay off a loved one's debt, this is when you are responsible. Sharing a joint credit card account with the deceased. Mm-hmm. This doesn't apply if you're an authorized user. Being a cosigner on a loan for the deceased where there's an outstanding debt. Mm-hmm. Living in a state where the law requires surviving spouses to pay particular kinds of debt. This is most common in states with community property laws. Goodness. In certain states, this also applies if you're executor or administrator of the deceased estate. Mm. Being the executor or administrator of the deceased estate but only in states that require executors or administrators to pay off debt from property owned by the surviving.
You want to start that one over.
Spouses.
Being the executor or administrator of the deceased's estate, but only in states that require executors or administrators to pay off debt from property jointly owned by the surviving and deceased spouses.
Who said it better?
It's a toss-up. Yeah, I read it really well, but I don't think I processed what I was saying because I was so focused on making sure that I didn't stumble on any of the words.
So if any creditors come calling, keep all of this in mind. They're not allowed to coerce you into paying off debts, which are not your responsibility.
Yeah. But I don't think they're going to tell you that. So they're going to try to
Sounds like you got to retain counsel.
For everything in life.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Sadly. Yeah.
So how to prepare for your loved one's deaths. And we preach this every dang day. Right?
One day I should listen to my own self.
Inga Lake.
Or at least listen to you if I'm not willing to listen to me.
Golly, no kidding. Though you may not be at huge risk to pay off a loved one's bills after their death, it's worth talking about it beforehand. Only 32% of Americans have an estate plan, so you're in good company.
Yeah.
So the importance is, if you hate the people in your family, leave unclear instructions and no will.
That'll get them.
Oh my goodness.
Do you remember the client that we had? The husband cared for the wife. And when the husband was dying, he knew at the end, and it came pretty fast. He changed all of the passwords, and it was his final screw you to his wife.
Oh my word, I had forgotten about that.
Oh my. How awful. How awful.
Yeah.
Oh man, what a jerk. I can't even imagine. So that just made me think of it. Like, if you really don't like them, just leave unclear instructions and no will. Let them fight it out.
He said they will all fight for the rest of their lives over your crap. Oh my word.
Yeah.
One way to prevent loved ones from having to deal with large debt is to have life insurance. A policy can cover any shared debt, so no one has to shell out their own money and hurt their own finances.
Yeah.
Boy, wouldn't that be another screw you?
Oh, yay. Be careful how you purchase those. I watch too many crime shows. You can't just, if your loved one is at risk of dying at any time in the near future, you can't have just put a life insurance policy on them, or you automatically become suspect number one.
How long do you have to?
Well, we can go to our, this is maybe the grandma advice or the wisdom or whatever. You can either talk about it or you can do it, but you can't do both. So if you want to do something really naughty, but you talk about it, then you can't do it because you've already talked about it. So they're going to know it was you. Anyway, so that's when I think about things that I want to do that are naughty. I have to talk about them. So then I know I can't do them.
Funny. Oh, so here's a quick summary of how various scenarios are handled. And so a scenario, you didn't co-sign anything and the deceased isn't your spouse. Will you be responsible? Likely no. You're responsible for handling the estate. Likely yes, but using the estate's assets, not your own. Mm-hmm. You co-signed a financial obligation or have a financial joint account with the deceased. Likely yes. The debt was taken on by a spouse or domestic partner while you lived in the community property state. Likely yes. So some more basic info here.
You know what? I was thinking about a time back in my way youth. I worked at a staffing agency, and I worked with a lady who had a boyfriend, and she co-signed on a motorcycle. This kid was quite a bit younger than her. He went out and crashed it, like totaled it. I don't know what the insurance situation was, but she was still on the hook for all of it.
Oh.
She had co-signed on the loan.
Oh, no.
Yep.
Did that relationship last?
No.
And so he took off and she still owed on it?
Basically, yeah.
Oh, my Lord.
Yep. Yeah, so be careful. You got to know who you're co-signing with.
Oh my goodness. Yes. So debts could go unpaid if there aren't enough assets in the estate to cover the liabilities. That's okay and in line with the law.
Okay. So the deceased's assets are often what's used to settle the unpaid bills, and collectively the person's assets and liability make up their estate. Debts don't disappear when someone dies, but the creditors could be limited to collecting payment from the person's estate. So some assets might be off limits as well. For example, life insurance policies and retirement accounts could pass money on to listed beneficiaries outside of probate, and creditors wouldn't have any claim to that money. Debts could go unpaid if there aren't enough assets in the estate to cover the liabilities. And again, like you had said, that is okay, and that's in line with the law. So they're going to go and try to recover as much as they can from what value is left in the estate. Sure. And then it's probably that trying to squeeze blood out of a turnip situation.
Well, exactly. And I got to tell you, this being the year of firsts for my little brother, mother actually had to go and have his taxes done.
Oh my gosh.
And I had never thought about that, and having her have to deal with that. And so this one day she's texting me, and I'm on my way to get his taxes. And I was like, I am so sorry that you had to do that. Yeah. But even almost a year after, she still had to get his taxes done.
Well, what do they say? There's only 2 guarantees in life, death and taxes.
Yep. Yeah. So that is just almost insult to injury.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, darn it.
So first, get the state's finances in order. Mm-hmm. When someone passes away, state laws and the deceased will, if there is one, will determine who gets the job of keeping the estate's finances in order. The named person could be known as the executor, personal representative, administrator, or universal successor. Ooh, that's quite the title. Oof. I am the universal successor.
It sounds like above my pay grade.
Yeah. Among other responsibilities, this individual will help execute the will, create an estate bank account, close out the deceased financial accounts, and work through the probate process when it's necessary. So if this responsibility falls on your shoulders, you should start by creating a detailed account of financial concerns and sources of assets or debts that will need to be addressed, including
funeral service and burial costs. It is not cheap. Not cheap. Estate, will, and trust matters. Taxable investments, including brokerage accounts, tax advantaged retirement accounts such as IRAs, 401ks, or 403(b)(s)s. Income and employment matters such as Social Security benefits, tax-related documents, current bills, and miscellaneous expenses.
How many people are organized that's all just in one cute little box?
You know, we do a lot at Apaga Home Care. Like, I just really, sometimes I look over like our records and I'm like, this is, wow, we really are doing a lot here. And I see how neatly and tidily I have things prepared and filed and organized. And then I look at the drawer, the next drawer over, which is all of my personal crap that's literally like this, just shoved in the drawer. I'm like, whoever has to whoever succeeds me at Apaga is going to be fine. Whoever has to sort through my personal bullshit. That's the one of, that would be my screw you, right?
A little bit more challenging is what you're saying.
Yes, I'm not quite as organized.
Well, see my room at the office and then envision that at my house. I know where my stuff is.
You are so funny because I will walk into your room and I'll be like, hey, I need so-and-so. I've got to answer this question about an employee, whatever it is. And you panic. Every single time I can see it on your face, you panic and you're like, I'll bring it up to you. Just give me a minute. And then like within 30 seconds, you're walking upstairs.
As soon as you leave my room and the pressure's gone, I walk right to the file because I know where my stuff is.
Every time.
But when I'm not there and you need something, I'm like, oh, crap. Okay, third pile, 2 inches deep. There should be
underneath the pink piece of paper. And you walk me right to it.
I know, but it's still stressful.
I know.
Goodness. Okay. So having a list of assets, liabilities, and other obligations can help you sort through what needs to be done in the coming weeks. In some cases, you may need to work with an attorney, accountant, tax advisor, or financial institution representative to get all the documents in order.
Oh, yeah. The death certificate is an important thing. Like, it seems like you need it for every single thing.
Yeah. I know that when somebody passes, they go, how many death certificates do you need? And just get more.
Yes.
Because you're going to not think about somebody that has to need it.
And can I ask you this question? I mean, the article refers to like a funeral director being able to potentially order those certificates.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's where you get them.
Right. Okay. And then additionally, like after the fact, you can
go to the courthouse.
County clerk.
Yeah. That's where I had to go for my stepdaughters.
Yes.
And I think it was like $4 or $5
right
to have that. So I just grabbed a couple because I didn't know if there would be anybody else coming out of the woodwork.
Yeah. And that would need that.
Yeah. So I still have them in my records, but just needed the one. She didn't have a lot of enough assets to have to really have to worry too much.
Sure.
Yeah. So assess any debts once the estate is in order and you've taken care of the basic housekeeping items. You'll want to take a closer look at any debts to determine if you or your family members will be responsible for covering the cost.
Yeah. Basically looking and trying to determine if you're going to be liable for anything. Most of the debts aren't going to pass on to relatives or friends, but there are some circumstances where they may. So again, it's that co-signing a loan. If you're co-signed on a loan, a lease, a mortgage, a credit card, any other type of financial obligation with the deceased, then you are likely going to be responsible for repaying the remaining balances. So, that's not going to go away if you're signed on it. And then again, looking at that community property state, are you in one of those where you are responsible for it? And I think we had listed those off earlier today.
Yeah.
Community property is property that is considered, and this is from the IRS publication 555. Community property is property that you, your spouse, or your registered domestic partner, or both acquire during your marriage or registered domestic partnership while you and your spouse or your registered domestic partner are domiciled in a community property state. It could also include property you choose to convert to community property and property that can't be identified as separate.
Even with our brands for our cattle, I need to check it, but there's verbiage that's very specific. I can put Michael and Julie Brubaker, and then we both have to sign on everything, or it can say Michael and or Julie Brubaker.
So then only one of you.
Yeah, but there's very specific rules to why you would pick and or. So I don't remember all of that, but I remember when I was ordering that, they go, how do you want that to be? And I'm like, well, what does that mean? What's the big hang up?
Right.
And I think it's like, if you're really concerned that your husband's going to shyster you, you better put and.
Right. So that one person cannot make the decision.
Go sell all the cows
by themselves.
Well, that would work in my behalf when I'm tired of all the cows.
It's like,
he comes home
why didn't I put or? Why didn't I put or? Yeah, that would be like, I'm going to sell all the cows. Oh, God. I mean, please don't sell them.
I know.
Right.
It's
reverse psychology there a little
man.
bit. So medical bills, although they're not always enforced, some states do have basically a responsibility law that would require adult children with the financial means to pay medical bills when their parents are unable to do so. The debt could accrue during the parents' later years and be left after death. However, if your parent qualifies and enrolls in Medicare, then the final responsibility generally doesn't. Filial, I think I'm pronouncing it correctly. The filial responsibility generally doesn't apply. So you could also be on the hook for if your spouse leaves behind medical debts in some states. And also in some states that are non-community property states that have laws making a spouse automatically liable for medical bills. However, the state might limit the liability or debt for necessary or life-saving procedures. So,
and we see that a lot. Actually, we have a situation going on right now where one of our clients, the wife just had it with him. Couldn't get him to change his behaviors after years of marriage. And so she left him and went and got her own apartment.
Yeah, she just pieced out.
She just went, good luck, buddy. Well, though, number one, he couldn't handle being alone.
Right.
It was very dangerous for him because he did have conditions. But she, when I called her and said, hey, we found him on the floor, she's like, oh, good for you. And I was just like, she had no concept that they weren't divorced yet.
Right.
I don't even know if they would be considered, well, basically separated, but I don't know that he knew they were, except that she wasn't coming around. But she just gave up trying even to help him. And the reason that it hit us so hard is because she expected our caregiver,
right,
to take on a lot of responsibilities. Oh, she can open the mail and make sure that he's paying the bills and all of these things. And we're like, no, your name is still on these. You are still responsible. And she didn't want to hear it. She was so tapped out. No. And so, whatever their deal was, it was very unfortunate that this far later in their life, this is how she chose to deal with it, because when he passes, she's going to still be in a world of hurt.
I know.
Yeah.
So we pray for her. Everyone out there, please pray for her.
Yes. Yes. It's a current hot potato right now.
Oh, man. Yeah. Apparently you can't just peace out on everything. And say,
I'm over
it's
you.
Not my problem anymore.
She
if
tried.
Your name is on the dotted line.
Yeah, she tried very hard.
Oh, man. Not good.
Yeah.
So what about outstanding auto loans or mortgages? So the situation could get a little trickier when someone leaves behind a home or vehicle with outstanding debt tied to it. Creditor may be able to repossess the vehicle or foreclose on the home unless you take over the monthly payments. So mortgage lenders generally can't require you to pay the outstanding balance all at once and can't kick out a surviving spouse or a beneficiary who continues to make mortgage payments while living in the home. Again, my thought would be, as long as they're getting their money, they're probably not going to care. Where it becomes a problem is if they stop getting their money.
And then you're going to just want to change the name on it.
Yeah. And somebody's still going to have to pay for it.
And still. Yeah.
Or get out.
Get out.
Oh, what a mess, man.
Yeah.
Nothing's easy, ever.
Yeah. So if a debt collector could call you, hold your ground. You can inform the collection agency to contact the estate's executor, administrator, or whoever else is authorized to make debt payments from the estate. Don't panic. Get the information of what they're wanting from you, get their phone number, their contact, and then hang up, take a big breath, and then figure out what indeed.
Well, I just had a thought about a situation that we're currently in where there was kids and a dad and fighting and fighting and fighting. And dad's with kid A, and then dad goes to kid B, and then dad ends up back with kid A, and then dad passes away.
Yep.
Kid B doesn't pay the bill, actually pays it, but then rejects the ACH payment. And then we're stuck with this.
Yeah.
Kid B is like, nope, not going to do it. Don't care. Take it up with kid A, even though it was done during Kid B's day.
time.
So it's a cluster, and honestly, it's probably something that we're just going to have to write off and, just say it is what it is. If it brings peace to Kid A, and it's just a rough situation, but it's so sad. It's not really, I don't know, for me, it's not worth the fight on, is Kid B responsible, or should they be, for paying a check and then canceling it? I would think so, but because it was with Dad's money.
Yeah, on top of it all.
It was with Dad's money. Yeah. Anyway, what a mess. But so pray for us, apparently.
Pray for all of the hardships in the world.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's just rough. That's a heavy topic.
Yeah, it really gets you thinking about, don't go buy a motorcycle for your young boyfriend that's going to crash it and then leave you anyway. That's the advice. I mean, is there anything else to say?
That was our grandma's wisdom for the day.
Good grief.
Oh, Lordy.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right. Tell me something good.
Okay. We're going to start going through a list of popular old sayings again. We've done this before, but I love that so much that we're doing it again. Nice. Not with those ones, with new ones. Yeah. So popular.
Wait. Time out.
What?
I want to know what does hot to trot mean. So I don't know if it's on your list, but we've got to put that later. I said it the other day, and I was like, that seems like one that we need to delve into a little further.
You're looking at her.
Oh, well, okay.
Hot to trot.
Question answered.
That's me.
Okay, carry on.
Okay. At the drop of a hat. Yeah. Means to do something without delay. But the real meaning is, in the 19th century, a hat was used to indicate the start of a race or a fight.
Ooh.
A hat would be dropped or swept in a downward arc, and participants would begin.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
I did not know that.
See? Learned something new today. Hopefully something from the podcast as well, though.
True story. Awesome, Julie. Well, thank you so much. That's a good one.
Yeah. It was. I actually have got to go look at my bills.
I always say I'm going to do that, and then I'm like, maybe next time.
Lake.
I have so many things from our 100 podcast episodes where I probably made a promise that I was going to do something. And it's still on my to-do list. It just keeps getting shifted down, one lower, one lower.
Priorities.
All right. Peace out, Girl Scouts.
Have a good day.
The Caregiven name is a registered trademark of the Veritrust Health Incorporated Company. IPAGA is not connected to, affiliated with, or endorsed by Veritrust or any of its affiliates.